Jay's Grass-Fed Podcast, Episode 7, Week 7. I think, no, because I skipped a week. But anyways, I've been consistent this month, and I've been taking the graphs, making the graphs of the weather recordings, temperature recordings, and yeah, it's been interesting to see how the temperature fluctuates. I hear a lot about all the cold going on down in the south right now, but no one's talking about the warm spike ups in the north that we have. I've seen 3 50 degrees days in December this year. So that's on record. It's interesting. I don't think that used to happen. The big thing for me is like the fluctuations, like the spike ups and then spike downs. And with that being said, I guess we should just get into this week's graph, because it's a very, very interesting one. If you're watching this, thank you for your support, and let's get into it. So, trying to get this good, because last time it blurred out right when I started doing it. So this is what's going on here. Last Tuesday, where we left off, the low was 28 and the high was 35. Wednesday, 21st, the low was 13 and the high was 33. Thursday, 22nd, low was 29, high was 38. Friday, the 23rd, we got our 6th rain of the month. The low was 45 and the high was 56. And in 3 hours, I literally witnessed it drop from 56 down to like 16. And the low for the next day was 8 degrees Fahrenheit. So in less than 24-hour period, it went from 56 to 8. So there's that. And then the high was only 13 for the 24th, 25th. Low was 18. The high was 23rd. Monday the 26th. Low was 24. And the high was 30. I said 23rd, 23 for the day before. And then Tuesday, today, the low was 26 and the high was again 30. So it's pretty interesting. Try to get a good view of that. And now this is the third one, so at the end of the month I could line them all up. And I did it last week in the podcast, just holding up the two next to each other, and I was able to do it with the 3, and it looks pretty cool, you know, having that live data, the visual data right in front of you, you know, because this is where I write all the temps down each day, the humidity and the time, how many rains and how many snows. Oh, so that was the thing. It was 56, it rained, everything melted, and then it dropped down. I was at the garden, it was 3:30, and around like 5:30, 6:30, it had dropped down to 16. So 46 degrees, in 2 hours it dropped. It's crazy. So what else did I have here? Well, there was a subscriber, Simple Foraging. He asked a question, seeing if I could answer it. What are my thoughts on where we're at? And I mean, by we're, I mean, I think he means all of us, like as a collective, the country, the world. Where are we going, and what can we do as individuals? What can we do as individuals about it? Or, yeah, what can we do as individuals? What we can do about it as individuals. Wow, I don't know why that was so hard to say. So, yeah, I don't know. I can only speak for myself, right? Obviously, I can't speak for anybody else. I could just speak based upon my observations and what I know to be true. Yeah, I mean, it seems like people just don't care. And I mean, you're either on, not trying to cause any division whatsoever, but I mean, there already is so much, but it just seems to me, from where I stand, my perspective, it's just like you're either on or you're off. I don't know. I mean, it's like you're either about this stuff or you're not about this stuff. And like maybe you're just uninformed. But I feel like a lot of people just aren't interested in self-reliancy, self-resiliency, and self-regenerative. Yeah, it just seems like the grand majority doesn't care about that. So that's kind of where I see it's at. But there is a lot of people who do care. So that's a great thing. But it's you only have you at the end of the day, right? So I mean, you kind of got to be selfish in a way, in a good way. I mean, you probably have a family that you want to care about, and you also got to care about yourself. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't predict the future. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow. You know, I don't know what's gonna happen 5 years from now. And I don't even know what's gonna happen in a few hours. So it's pretty unpredictable. But I feel like people think they know, or feel like they want to know what's gonna happen. And I feel like I used to think I knew what was gonna happen. And it's not trying to be like scare or fear mongering of like, oh, what's gonna happen. It's just like, of literally just like, no, like, don't know what's gonna happen, period. So, but my advice would be, what can we do as individuals about all of this, of just the division and what seems to be a lot of chaos and people not caring in the world? Like I said, a lot of people caring. I mean, the people who do care, we could all come together, right? I know I was just saying you gotta be selfish in a way, but we're not gonna, we gotta come together. I mean, we gotta come together, and if you have the ability to grow some food, I think that is a really good thing that you could do for yourself and your family, is grow some organic, storable vegetables and grow some fruit trees, some nut trees, some berry bushes, some flowers, you know, grow your perennials, intermix with your annuals, and establish a resilient food system for yourself and your family. Save seeds, even if it's just a squash, an organic squash from the grocery store, or an organic pepper, or better yet, like some organic squash from the co-op, from like a local farm. That way you're saving seed from something you kind of know where it came from, rather than just saving it from, but regardless, I have some saved seed from a organic pepper from Mexico. We'll see what happens, but it's better than nothing, right? So I think it's just, and this is just what I preach through the channel and what I live by in my everyday life, is work with what you have and try to make it the most cost effective, like the least materialistic involved. I don't know if that makes any sense, but just do what you can with what you have, and that's all you can do. You can do what you can with what you have from where you're at, and that's about that. I don't know, everybody has their own different views and opinions, and obviously they're entitled to that. But I just see a lot of division, and I know there's so much good out in the world. I'm surrounded by a lot of gloom, so it's I have to remind myself that it's not all gloom. I know there's a lot of good in the world, and there's a lot of people doing a lot of great things, and yeah, so be one of those people that's doing great things. And I don't know, everybody's gonna have their own definition of that. So I guess whatever that definition is to you, all we could try to be is the best person, a better person than we were the day before, right? So yeah, the philosophical thoughts with J's Grass Fed podcast. So yeah, I guess just moving on from that, those are my thoughts. Hope I could answer your question, brother, or just give you some insight on what my thoughts are. And if you watch this, much love to you. Simple Foraging. Thanks for your support as always. So, moving on. We're past the solstice now. It is December 27th. And going into January, we're at this lull point right now where we're just kind of stuck at 9 hours of daylight, and it'll start gaining a few minutes each day in the first week of January. So just like one more week, so a week from today, really. A week from today, we'll start gaining daylight again. That's a really awesome thing. That's my pup over there. But that's a really awesome thing that we're gonna start gaining daylight, and I'm thinking about starting some seeds, because I get eager. I got the second grow light being delivered in the mail, and I have some basil seedlings that are about a month old. They'll be a month old on the 30th. That was the day I sowed them, so they're a little bit less than a month old on the 30th, because it took them like 5 to 7 days to germinate, and they're looking good. I'm getting the grow light dialed in. I had them sitting all the way on the table for like a good 2.5 weeks, and it also gets kind of cold in the room, so they weren't getting leggy, but they just didn't seem like they were growing as much as they should have been. So I put them on like a milk crate on top of the table, and now that they've been closer to the light, it seems like they're doing better. So still getting the light tuned in. I'll have it tuned in by the stuff, by the time that I have to plant the stuff that really matters. Not that these don't really matter, but it was just going into it with experimentation, knowing that it was going to be an experimentation. So we're getting the second grow light come in this week, Friday, and I'm thinking about starting a second succession of basil seedlings, because they are doing pretty all right. So that could lead into with one of my next endeavors is going to try to be is possibly herbs. They take a while to get started, but it seems like they're like a good not an added value crop to, I guess it could be an added value. You could turn it into an added value product, like making your own tea blends. You'd have to grow a lot of herbs to make your own teas, but that would lead me into my next. What I'm trying to do is harvest a whole bunch of wild herbs in the springtime and dry those, and then just make that into J's tea blend. Or obviously grow, because I feel like getting the herbs like fresh, like keeping them in water and taking them to market and selling them in bunches, is just a little bit too, like, doesn't equal out for the, it's just not gonna, the middle of the summer, you're trying to keep these herbs alive in water, I don't know, and they have to get moved around in the car. So maybe if you had full already established herb plants, and then people would like to just replenish their herbs in their garden, and they could buy just your herb start plants, and then that would bring them in to buy a little bit more vegetables, maybe have the wild tea blend, and then along with all the vegetable crops. I know I just said that, and then I got the pesto and the elderberry tonic as well. So I'm looking. That was one thing that I bring it back to the simple foraging question I wanted to talk about is like, I said grow storable vegetables, but what I mean by that is like I feel like a bulk amount of like some dried beans that you could shell and make stews out of and save seed off of to grow them again, and a surplus amount of potatoes depending on how far north you are. If you could grow a good amount of sweet potatoes, really nutrient dense, and they store so well. Like potatoes store well, but you have to keep them in the dark and at like 50 degrees. But I mean, sweet potatoes seems like you could store them pretty well without even the proper storage, if that makes any sense. Yeah, so the dry beans, the potatoes, sweet potatoes, pumpkins, winter squashes, and then I mean the greenhouse, you could take it through the winter with all different kinds of greens, spinaches, Mizuna Asian greens, tatsoi, lettuce, radishes. You could take it through the winter with all your greens and then have all these other storable crops in your root cellar or cold closet or cold basement. Not the same as a root cellar. And corn, amaranth. They have dryland rice strains. Quinoa. If you're south, like zone 7, zone 6-ish, you can get quinoa to form grain. And then there's all these other like perennial, like there's perennial kale, I'm learning, perennial cabbage, and perennial is you plant it and it comes back every year. Annual is plant it once and then it dies at the end of the season, you have to replant it. So it really does seem like that. And I mean, from the research that I've done, is that like permaculture was just basically like the new age word that they put on. Oh, excuse me. Permaculture was just like this new age word that they put on these ancient practices. I mean, these practices have been done for however long you want to say. I mean, a very, very, very long time. And I mean, that's why they still work. That's why people still use them. They're ancient practices. All this intermixing, interplanting, no-tilling, composting, all this stuff is like, this has been around for so long, and I feel like it's hard to forget that. I mean, it's easy for people to forget that. Or maybe you're just, like, I don't know, uninformed about it, misled in a way. Just like, I'm not saying anything like, whatever, permaculture, say the word, it's cool, permanent culture. But yeah, I don't know, I lost my train of thought. Just saying, it's easy to forget that, these are, it's not like this is some new age thing. Like people, it's the ancient practices with probably like new age spins on it, because we can like innovate it and make it work to our climate and all these different things. And that's a beautiful thing about it. But I just think we gotta remember to pay homage to the ancients and the elders. And yeah. And then just a brain blast. When I do have my own land and a greenhouse, I was thinking about one that I just want to be like a hot house, and make like, and this has been done in Nebraska, and people are experimenting this. Colorado, bananas at 7,200 feet elevation. Type that in on YouTube. Bananas growing at 7,200 feet elevation in Colorado. And type in on YouTube oranges growing in Nebraska. So like these people are doing it. And bananas can take down to like 20 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you had like a hothouse that you just didn't let go below a certain amount of degrees, you could create this almost tropical-esque environment in there. And then bring the bring the tropics to the north. I don't know. Could be cool. Have some mangoes and bananas in Vermont. And there could already be people doing that. But then it's like, I'm not trying to, because a whole big part about the permaculture is to observe nature and just mimic what you see in nature, essentially, and see what systems work around you. And I think that that's obviously, the main avenue, but it's cool to experiment with these other, especially with like the changing of 56 just a few days ago, and 50 whatever, not whatever, but 53 on the 6th and 60 on the 7th, and now 50 again on the 23rd. 56. So that's 3 50-degree days in December. So whatever, I'm in no way, shape, or form political whatsoever. But something's changing, right? Things are not the way they used to be. It's as simple as that. And I know that could be taken in many different ways, but I'm talking about temperatures. Like, we don't get winters like we used to. And I've been watching this ever since 2014, even when I lived down in Connecticut. It just all started changing. And it had probably been happening for many years before that, but I've just been alive long enough to observe it since I've been observing it. But I've talked to people who have been here longer than me. And, I take their word for it. I talk to a lot of people who've been here longer than me, and they say, it wasn't like this. So, yeah, that's all that.